Okay, so we are live for the Tier 4 race, and it is at Singapore once again, round 3. I think just seeing if a few drivers may be able to get into it. At the moment we have 12 in. See, both AlphaTauris, both Ferraris are in. So Haas have 2 drivers as well. So they are well represented. Whereas a few other teams are just struggling with the numbers at the moment. So it will be a 50% race, and before that, of course, will be short qualifying. So 31 laps around the streets at Singapore. Just see, I think 3 drivers were just wandering or awaiting. I invited Brett and Canucks already, but I don't think I have GMWG, unfortunately, so I couldn't send him an invite. But we could have up to 15. Of course, it has gone past 8 o'clock, so we will be starting fairly soon. Just have a little look how the Tier 4 Championship is going. And it is the AlphaTauri of DD Friend leading the way. 40 points on the board, 9 points ahead of Hockey Iceman after just 2 races. A stunning start then by DD Friend. Shudson and Slater are level in 3rd place, and John Ramble only 1 point further back. So there's a few good contenders, although Slater not racing tonight, whereas the other 4 drivers around him are racing. Wizard Arrow is also not racing, he is in 6th place. Mrs. P is 7th, and she is of course racing in the Alfa Romeo. Bretty Boy is now on in the Aston Martin. He actually did get some good points last time out at Miami. So the round 1 victory headed to the way of DD Friend, and then round 2 was won by 50 Gent. 50 Gent not racing tonight. Canucks finished in 2nd. He is due to race. I just think he's having 1 or 2 struggles to get in, I think. So we may see Canucks pop in the lobby soon. And last time out finishing 3rd, and the final spot on the podium was Jay Francis in the Mercedes. Last season he was in Tier 3, now he is in Tier 4, and we'll see how he can deliver tonight. And yeah, Bretty Boy did finish just behind in 4th place. Abu Dhabi, the victory for DD Friend. 2nd went to John Ramble. 3rd and the final spot on the podium for Hockey Iceman, and Canucks is now in. That is last week's runner-up behind 50 Gent. So we now got 14. Oh, we do have 15. Oh, I thought we just had 15 for a moment, but it is the 14. It might have just been Canucks picking his car that I saw actually. It looks like people are now readying up, so we shall get this party started. Oh, did somebody leave right at the end? I think we went down to just 13 drivers right at the end. I'm not sure who left. Somebody definitely did leave. Let me see if I can figure it out. I think it was Canucks by the looks of it. Let me see if I could add him back into the lobby. Hopefully he can rejoin. So I just added him back. Anyways, now I'm going to get the Twitch chat up. Right, so if there are any messages coming through, I will now see them. Just wonder who will take pole position. The 18 minutes countdown has begun. And it looks like it will be a dry qualifying session as well. So as I was saying earlier, it's the two Ferraris are both in, both Aston Martins and two Haas drivers as well. The two AlphaTauris as well are also in. Anybody else who's got two? Don't think Williams have anyone in tonight. Anyway, just going to set everything up then. So John Ramble is out. Here's the fourth car out. That trash is the lead car with Fido Jr. just behind, so see what that trash can do then. Although Fido Jr. seems to want to be the first driver out. Oh, it's almost like they're having a bit of a race here. It's only qualifying, lads. Relax. Have some patience. Alright, let's go back then with Fido Jr. as he's now deciding to warm up his tyres. Oh, Nick with a 5-place penalty for a collision with that trash. I do hope that trash doesn't have any sort of damage. Might have to go into the pits to repair. Where is okay. What about Nick? Does he have front wing damage? Don't give us the broadcast view then. Alright. Hopefully we'll get a broadcast view at some point of Nick. That would be helpful. Alright, there you go. And let's see now if I can see any damage. Gotta say that front wing looks extremely low, but he may be okay. But either way, we will now go with Fido Jr., who certainly wanted to be the first car to set a time, so it would be a little bit disrespectful to not go with Fido Jr. for this lap. Into turns 1 and 2, quite nice. Into turn 3. Oh, and Buddy Nation is out. Looks like just into the final sector. Sadly for him. Let's see, actually, if I go with Mrs. P, you might have a little watch, or you do have a good view of him. Wow. And there you go, that was Buddy Nation, who looks like he will be starting in 13th position. So we need to make up a lot of ground. Not a track where you can do that unless you get a lot of luck, perhaps, with safety cars and strategies. So we've got Fido Jr. there. Let's see what his Sector 2 time will be. By the way, he is extremely low on his ERS. He must have been using that up quite a lot on his outlap. Perhaps he just forgot to change it. So just seeing that trash come through as well. We'll go back to Fido Junior then. 107 flat through sector 2. Around the final corner goes the McLaren, and the first time on the board is a 141.1, and that was Hockey Iceman, who did have his struggles last night. And he is out of qualifying. That trash will come into P2, 144 flat. Let's see. John Ramble now going wide, and is that an invalidation? It is not. But there's a 46.6. Nick goes quicker, and Dan goes P2, just a tenth behind Fido Jr. See McLaren coming through. Wakanda goes P3, and now with the Alfa Romeo of Mrs. P, a teammate winning last week, 50 Gent, not racing tonight, however. So Mrs. P comes in with a 143.5, goes into the top 4. And now we see with the AlphaTauri of DD Friend hasn't validated, so we'll go back and with Sam Hudson tonight. Can the Ferrari deliver? Currently got 1 in the top 3. Where will the other get himself up to? Let's find out then. Round the final corner goes Sam Hudson. And it places his Ferrari into P4. And it is a second row lockout at the moment for Ferrari. Wakanda from Sam Hudson. And now Jay Francis starting his flying lap in the Mercedes. Another contender, you would imagine, for at least a podium position. If he can get his race right, he might be able to deliver here, but let's find out. Only in qualifying, and he's not I remember this issue we had. Was it last week as well? Not using his ERS. And then someone did say that in the chat. I can't remember. Was it John Ramble? Maybe. Someone mentioned it though in the chat, saying that I was getting like a heart attack from it. Quality stuff. Anyways, let's see what Jay Francis can do without using his ERS then. If he goes P1, I just think he's trying to be cocky. And there's been a change. It looks like Mrs. P is into P4 now. 42 flat, splitting the Ferraris. Just sticking then with Jay Francis. It also looks like Bretty Boy's on his outlap, just about to start his flying lap. So Jay Francis now coming round the final corner. Looks like a reasonable lap. Can he get himself high up? He can get himself into the top 3 of 41.5. If he used up his now he's using his ERS. So that dropped down considerably. Oh, that's amazing. He just didn't want to use his ERS on his hot lap, did he? Unless this is his hot lap. Okay, that's not his hot lap. I do wonder. Maybe he was only preparing to use his ERS for his second flying lap. He's losing 6 tenths because he hit the wall, and fortunate to not invalidate it regardless. But I do wonder. I think this lap he was preparing to be his flying lap. But anyways, we'll go off board then with Jay Francis. We'll go to Sam Hudson on a lap. He is very low on his ERS charge. Actually, we will go with the Aston Martin of Bretty Boy then. 107 flat as well in the sector 2 split. Does look like his car's just moving around a little bit low, but we'll see. Can he get himself high up the order? Let's find out then. So I think he'll be in the 40s at the very best. 41s, yep, 41.2. It does go P2. less than a tenth short of Fido Jr. in the McLaren. I unfitted noise, mate. Rooting for Wakanda. Yes, rooting for the Ferrari. I like it. A lot more drivers are back out on track. Then you've got Mrs. P. Sam Hudson heading into the pits nice and slowly. And DD Friend starting a flying lap. So Nick on a slow lap. Mrs. P on a going in the pits. I'm presuming a lot of the drivers think when they see the first white line. Oh, Mrs. P retiring from a session. 42 flat. Yeah, I'm gonna guess though that when people go into the pits, they presume initially that the first white line is where you're meant to slow down, but it's actually the second one. It did sort of throw me off at first, I think, but then after that you sort of get used to it, I suppose. But Wakanda, unfortunately for him, has a McLaren right behind him, which I don't really... Oh, race control. There is rain and DRS has been disabled. I think that's why Mrs. P retired from a session. That Trash retiring from a session. So it's not a fully dry session. Unfortunately, you did need to get your time in as quickly as you could. Jay Francis, currently in P4, also retiring from a session. I'll be honest, it doesn't look like, from the view, that the rain is bad enough for DRS to be disabled, but hey ho, that's the decision made then. So, the race director deciding for that, and most drivers now retiring from the session. Although I said that, I do think now it is starting to get more slippery. And Wakanda clearly not going to improve. Is anybody improving? John Vermble going into the pits. DD Friend. And this will be his, so he did set a 45.7 to go ahead of John Ramble, but running wide and it doesn't look like he's going to be able to improve, so I think, effectively, it's surely the session over. Shudson on an outlap, currently on soft tyres. I mean, I'll be honest, if you think you set a quick enough time on the first run, that will probably be it. Vito Jr. should effectively take pole position now. Oh, Nick wants to get into the pit, make sure he does, and he does indeed. Just has to be careful there, because again, you don't want to get disqualified for so-called blocking the pit lane or anything like that. So the majority of cars are heading into the pits. I presume they're not going to go back out with just over 5 minutes to go. And I don't think anybody is going to be able to snatch pole position away from Fido Jr. So not quite as dramatic, but less than a tenth between the top three, Fido Jr., Betty Boy and Dan MW. Hello Ghost, how oh, well done on your victory, by the way, in tier 2. Quality stuff. I mean, UJGC obviously got pole by a long way. I didn't watch the end of the race, I'll admit, but it must have been a great effort, mate. So congratulations on your win. And honestly, I've obviously been able to watch you drive from last season and this season. I know you are a good driver, and it was deserved, that's for sure. So well done, mate. And continuing on with this then. Everyone else into the pits, apart from Wakanda. He wants to go onto the intermediate tyres. Definitely not going to improve his time on those, but who knows? If it's a potential race, then I don't blame him for just trying out the inters. The Alpine of Nick also on an outlap, presumably on inters, yep. So both of these drivers on the intermediate tyres. So now we are down to 4 who have not yet retired. Fido Jr., Dan, Wakanda and Nick. So unless we have a wet race, I don't think there's a necessity to continue. Although I say that, Wakanda does look like he's struggling on even the intermediate tyres, let alone the softs. Hopefully this week as well, Wakanda has a race setup and not a qualifying focused setup. And that certainly cost him last week. Whilst he was extremely quick in qualifying, he wasn't quite as stable as he would have liked at Miami in the race. So Wakanda then, less than 3 minutes remaining. And also Nick, Nick with a bit of a spin. Just want to be a bit careful here not to damage the car, although again probably not necessarily too much. May as well have gone into the pits to be honest, but there you go. Still the 4 drivers left out of the 13 plus Canucks as well, who I think will start last. Don't know if anybody is racing tonight. If anyone is able to confirm if it will be a dry race or a wet race, that would be ideal. Especially with the majority of drivers having retired from the session. Or Nick having to take the escape route and continuing to have a few struggles then. So Wakanda 3.4 seconds now. 8.7 seconds. Losing a bit of time, let's just say that, on the intermediates. Doesn't look like, from what I'm seeing, these drivers have any form of wet setup. With how much Wakanda and Nick haven't been enjoying these conditions. Having a few struggles, so I mean, surely it's a dry setup all round. Canucks is definitely struggling to stay in the lobby, I think. As with 40 seconds remaining, then we are just awaiting these 2 drivers, Wakanda and Nick, because Fido Jr. and Dan are in the pits. May as well retire from the session now. And sadly, with over 20 seconds to go, sadly Nick will get over the line and will probably try and do one more lap. 25.9 seconds adrift. There you go. Really struggling. I think these 2 drivers, Wakanda and Nick, must absolutely hope and pray there's not going to be any sort of rain affecting the race. So qualifying has ended. It's just the 2 drivers on the track, Wakanda and Nick. Coming to the end of the lap is the Ferrari, who will qualify in the top 5. think he did take pole position last week, of course, but struggled in the race itself, and now taking 5th place. But hopefully, if it is a dry race for his sake, he will have some consistency. But regardless, he has finished his qualifying run, so it's just down to Nick in the Alpine, who will qualify P9, but it will be the McLaren of Fido Jr. taking pole position ahead of Bretty Boy in the Aston Martin. And then Dan MW in the Haas, less than a tenth between those three, followed by Jay Francis in the Mercedes, Wakanda in the Ferrari, the Alfa Romeo of Mrs. P, the second Ferrari of Sam Hudson, and then a bit of a gap back to Dat Trash, Nick, DD Friend and John Ramble, as Nick will go into the pits. Hopefully now he will opt to retire. Please retire. Okay, anyways, so yeah, and then at the back you've got Hockey Iceman. Canucks, is apparently starting ahead of Buddy Nation. So there you go. That will be your grid order now. Nick has retired, so that will be the session completed. I'm not sure why we're still continuing with the session when nobody is on the track, apart from Wakanda, but he's already finished. Looks like we're going to have to wait the final 20 seconds anyways. Nope, we're just waiting a few seconds then. 2 and 1, and qualifying is over. Not sure what exactly we're waiting for at the end. I say that. 1 second to go. Time remaining is not changing from 1 second. And we do have some AI drivers at the back. So I'm just going to take a little sneaky screenshot now, just in case. I think we will need possibly a reset. We'll see. Let me see in the chat. What is Discord saying? Yeah, so lobby restart. I want to see rain first. I mean, we saw a couple of drivers struggle a lot with the rain, so that would be interesting, I think. Oh, why is it when drivers start to leave the session, all of a sudden the game is like, oh, how about this? We're gonna, get it back on track. Meanwhile, if we're doing a lobby restart, I have a question. Nick got a 5-place penalty in game. So does that 5-second penalty continue for this qualifying session? Oh, well, for the race itself. So I'm going to leave this lobby then. I would guess the 5-place penalty will continue. But I'm not sure. We'll find out. As for the grid order, I'll just get it up, but I do want to leave the session first. Alright, so we've left the session and now I'm just going to check the order. Right then, so I'll just see if anybody, presuming someone will be setting up the lobby, so I will just join on this one. And it looks like, yep, this is the lobby then, so we'll try and get some invitations going then. Hopefully I don't invite somebody who's already in, but anything can happen, so I may be, but just want to get everyone in as soon as I can. J Francis, less than 0.4 seconds with a wet setup. A wet setup? Oh, I think we're in for a tasty race then. If we've got rain on the cards. Oh, what's happened here? Why am I the only one in the lobby? Go back. Maybe everyone's having the same problem. What I might do if it doesn't let me... Okay, so if it doesn't let me join the session, I'm just going to do this. Quit the game. And we're going back into the game. As soon as we kind of tried to join, it did that to us all. Oh. Okay. Well, we'll be able to get back in, I think. May need a new lobby entirely. His name showed white/grey for a minute, could be coincidence. Oh, let's try and join in again. Doesn't look good though. the amount of time it's taking, I think it will say that we can't join it. Yeah, I think we will need a new lobby. No response from host. Yep. Thank you, EA. Sadly. Definitely seems more faults over the past like week or so with the game. I'm not sure why. It's a bit weird, really. But we'll see then. I'll just wait for confirmation on when we can join the lobby. But I will go back through the qualifying results in case anyone missed them. So it was Fido Jr. taking pole position in the McLaren, and he got it by just over 600ths of a second to the Aston Martin of Bretty Boy, and then the Haas of Dan MW, just under 1/10 of a second adrift of pole position. There's about 3.5 tenths back to the Mercedes of J. Francis in P4. 8 tenths to the Ferrari of Wakanda, last week's pole sitter, in P5. UFRL Mrs. P in P6 in the Alfa Romeo, about 9 tenths behind. 1.1 seconds to the Ferrari of Sam Hudson in P7. P8 was Dat Trash in the Haas. P9 was Nick in the Alpine, followed by Didi Friend in the AlphaTauri. And John Ramble in the Aston Martin was the final finisher in terms of setting a time. And then it was Hockey Iceman, Canucks and Buddy Nation all failed to set a lap time and will start at the back. However, so in game Nick received a 5-place penalty, but I'm unsure if he will have that 5-place penalty for this race. We'll find out. But find out now if I can get into the lobby. It's always good though when you've got a few drivers at the front who are all very quick. But anyways, let's go back to the invitations then. Once again, I do apologise if I'm inviting anyone who's already in, but I'm just trying to get everybody in as soon as I can. Looks like most have actually joined as well, so already up to 12. Did we have, what, 14 in the end? So yeah, it was 14 drivers, so doing alright. Now we're up to 13 and Wakanda is successfully in the lobby, so just the one more. And who is it? Canucks is in, so we are missing one more driver. I'll try and figure out who it is. So we got Fido Jr., Bretty Boy is in, Dan is in, J. Francis is in, Wakanda is in, Mrs. P of course is in, Sam Hudson is in, Dat Trash is in, what about Nick is in, Didi Friend, oh it's John Ramble. Okay. There you go, that makes it easier. John Ramble. And then that will be the 14 drivers joining. We just now need for the grid to be set. So just wait a little bit of time for that, please. And once the grid is set, then we can go. But there's no point going before the grid is set because then everyone will be out of position. No, it's not start already, please. 5-minute break. Definitely. just wait on confirmation on when the grid is set then. Right, so I am now leaving the Discord chat and I've got the Twitch chat back up. Hello 411 Omen. I'm not sure are you a driver in this league or I'm not 100% sure. But how are you doing anyways? Anyways, the drivers are readying up Betty Boy. Ah, okay. Well, have a nice race tonight, mate. Good luck. You did qualify very nicely. You had a good race last week as well, so I'm sure you'll probably be up there. But anyways, now we are just awaiting all the drivers to get to the grid. And then, of course, we'll have the 5-minute break to set up the car setup and the strategy. And again, I do believe it is a wet race, but we'll find out here. So with the wet race, of course, sadly no DRS, although I say sadly, I'll be honest, DRS isn't that effective here anyway. Don't know, maybe more overtakes are likely with it being a wet race, because mistakes will be a lot easier made, I think. So I do just wonder, was Sunny in the lobby symbol? No, we don't want to be hearing that. We want to be hearing that it was pouring down with rain, full wet conditions. That's what we want to be hearing. Only joking, of course. Maybe. Maybe not. But anyways, it would be nice if we have maybe some rain, some sun, I don't know. I say sun. Singapore, you shouldn't get sun. Should be a night race, and then you might get some rain during it, but it'd be interesting either way. But here we are, 20 seconds till we get on the grid. Now to the last 10, let's see then. What are the weather conditions like? Let's see if it will be spicy or not. 2, 1, and now we are going to see any rain at all. Looks like there is no rain on the track. So, it looks like it will be dry at least for the start of the race. But we have the 5-minute break now, so please nobody ready up. Nobody ready up. Fingers crossed. So we'll just check the Discord chat to see what time we are going to be going. We're going 9:47, so we have a good 1 hour break, so if anybody needs to do anything, you've got an hour to do it. Just joking, of course. 8:47, I think. But regardless, just wait until I presume Mrs. P says in the chat when you can ready up. So don't ready up until Mrs. P in the chat confirms it, please. Just make life a lot easier. Or in general, to be honest, I'll just don't press the A button or whatever button it is for you. Just don't press it. Just let Mrs. P press it. Just be, much easier. 6:45 AM here, so I'll be waiting a while. Yeah, be waiting until it's 7:45 in the morning, mate. Is it a strategy so that my Ferrari teammate falls asleep or something? Right, anyways, we'll get the Twitch chat back on then. Do you agree, Mr. P, though, that we should have had a bit of rain in this race? It would have been nice. Would have definitely been interesting to have maybe a dry start and then rain at the end or something. We'll see. I mean, I'm a bit in the dark of what the weather for the whole race will be. I mean, I've heard some suggesting it could have been rain, but then, as John Ramble put in the chat, it was sunny in the lobby symbol. And given it is dry for the start, you never truly know. Forecast shows moons all the way. It does look like then it will be a dry race, I think. So at least there will be the aid of, I say the aid, you can use DRS for the race at least. And if you're lucky, you might be close enough to the car ahead. I think ideally you've just got to hope you either get greater traction out of a corner than the car ahead, or you need the car ahead to make a mistake. Otherwise it's not going to be easy to complete an overtake. So either a mistake, or if they have damage, just something you've got to hope for. And again, safety cars can play its way into it, or a strategy. A good strategy, cool. I say a good one. Again, it's got to depend on can you get the safety car times correct, and also, I say the safety car times, that's if we get a safety car, we may not. It would be really nice if we can get a race without a safety car. That would be quality. I will admit, I was impressed with the Tier 3 race last night. Didn't seem like there were too many incidents or anything like that. I mean, sure, you may have had the odd one, but from what I saw, it was a good race. Hopefully this one will be right up there with the Tier 3 race from last night. So down to 15 seconds to go for the formation lap, and medium tyres for Fido Jr., Dan, Mrs. P and DD Friend at the moment. Everyone else is on the hard compound tyres. Okay, we are now going to start then with the formation lap. So again, we just get everything sorted out. Confirmed tyres, and as I said, medium tyres for Fido Jr., who is on pole position. Then you follow that up with the hard tyres for Betty Boy in the Aston Martin, mediums for Dan in the Haas. Quite similar to, I think, which race was it? Was it Tier 1, I think, on Monday night? Split strategies at the front, when there were two medium runners and one hard tyre runner. And then you've got Jay Francis in the Mercedes on the hard tyres, as is the Ferrari of Wakanda in P5. Mrs. P opting for the medium tyres in the Alfa Romeo. Can she get off to a quick start? And Sam Hudson just behind in the second Ferrari on the hard tyres as well. So both Ferraris are on the hard compound tyres. That trash on the hard, and that means it is split strategies for the Haas drivers, mediums and hard for them. Nick in the lone Alpine, also on the hard tyres. Didi Friend in the Haas, or AlphaTauri actually, sorry, on the medium tyres. John Ramble in the Aston Martin hard tyre, so it's both drivers on the hard tyres in the Aston Martin. Hockey has been disqualified, must have had some form of some form of contact with a driver, but then wouldn't he and that other driver have been disqualified? Not sure exactly what would have happened there with Hockey, but anyways, he is in the lone Red Bull on the hard tyres, Buddy on the hards in the AlphaTauri, and then Canucks. I said it was a lone Alpine. Reason why, because Canucks wasn't actually in qualifying, but he is here for the race, and he's in the second Alpine, also on the hard compound tyres. So the majority on the hards, that's for sure. Also, Bretty Boy has been disqualified. Feeder Jr. is on the grid. Say disqualified, it's only because they couldn't quite make it on the line. So Jay Francis, Wakanda now lining up his car. Sam Hudson already there. I say that, it was Mrs. P. Sam Hudson now lining up his car, right behind his Ferrari teammate. That Trash and Nick disqualified. The defender John Ramble now through, but disqualifications all over the grid at the back. Not sure what was happening there, but anyways, we're on board with Dan. Feeder Jr. in the lead, Bretty Boy behind. Looks like there's a few stalemates at the back. A couple of drivers struggling to get through, and Jay Francis in the Mercedes is right at the back of the field. But we are on board and with Dan. No real moves at the front. Was he looking for a move at the inside? Yes, but lost him time. And Wakanda in P4 now. We're actually going to quickly jump across to the position changes. So Nick flying up 4 places. Oh, there's no contact made between the trio of Bretty Boy, Dan and Wakanda. Late braking for the pairing of Dan and Wakanda. Oh, and Dan has ran wide. Hit a wall. Still in the race, but Wakanda on the podium now. Nick into P4, Dat Trash ahead in P5. A battle between these two, Nick and Dat Trash. Dan very close behind then. We'll just see as the contact made, I believe, by Dat Trash. And it may mean he could be under pressure soon from Dan MW. And there is contact also made potentially at the back of the field. CJ Francis and Buddy Nation right at the back now. Mrs. P also dropping places. So now it looks like we are starting to get a bit more firm as John Ramble has ran wide, and that means that Hockey Iceman now into the top 10. And also a battle going on. Sam Hudson and DD Friend, and Sam Hudson now making his way into P7. The Ferraris have got off now to a very decent start, both in the top 7. And also a very strong start for the 2 Haas drivers, P5 and P6, although it's that Trash up 3, Dan down 3 spots. So Dan would have been in a shout for a win, but has his teammate ahead of him. And that's a teammate who did qualify quite a few places behind. But he may be fielding at this moment in time. He needs to make an overtake on his teammate, or be allowed through potentially. Maybe if you're in the Haas team, you'd really be wanting for Dan to make a move, and here may be his chance. And I think Dan will complete the move on Dat Trash, whether it was team orders or not so sure. But Dan is ahead as Buddy Nation takes a 5-second penalty, but of course he can effectively remove that 5-second penalty at some point in the race, so it shouldn't be too costly, but it is for speeding into the pits. Can Dan make up a few more places now as we actually see, looks like Jay Francis closing in on Hockey, runs a bit wide. Does it enable a chance for Jay Francis round the outside, now onto the inside, makes the move on the Red Bull stick, and now Hockey under pressure from Mrs. P. Potential move down the inside, she makes a lunge for it, and a good move, that is for sure, by the Alfa Romeo up into P11. Mrs. P darting down the inside of the Red Bull, and overtaking Hockey, has been overtaken twice in a matter of corners from Jay Francis and Mrs. P. Yellow flags at the back, and it is Buddy Nation is out of the session. No contact, that's for sure, and a full course safety car. So Philo Jr. had a very strong lead to the Aston Martin of Bretty Boy. But he was still in the picture, as was Wakanda. A flying start by the Ferrari. Qualified P5 up to P3. Then you've got Nick in the Alpine. Has dropped off a lot from the top 3. However, he will now have an opportunity to close in. And he is up 5 places. A smashing start then. And then Dan is into P5, getting past his teammate Dat Trash. But Dan losing 2 places off the start, unfortunately for him. So then you've got DD Friend, P7 as Hockey Iceman now picks up a 5-second penalty. So DD Friend in the AlphaTauri also making a strong start. Sam Hudson losing a place in the Ferrari. But he is into the top 8 still. And then Canucks gaining 5 places off the start in the Alpine. It looks like he still has some pace, as he has proven early on this season, as he looks to pressurise the Ferrari when we get back underway. Jay Francis in the Mercedes, down 6 places. However, he was right at the back of the grid early in the race. Do wonder what happened exactly with him, but he has now made his way back up into the top 10. Mrs. P in the Alfa Romeo made that fantastic move on Hockey Iceman into P11. And then you've got John Ramble at the back. P13 in the Aston Martin just made his pit stop. Potentially replace his front wing on the medium tyre. So we'll just get the tyre situation back up then, as Hockey and John both pitting for the medium tyres. Of course, they started on the hard tyres. Just going to get a quick drink whilst we are under safety car conditions. Oh, as Hockey Iceman has now picked up a 3-second penalty and should surely have damage from that. Oh, and again, he doesn't like his front wing. He doesn't want a front wing. Continue with his struggles whilst he healed last night. And it's going to be a real battle to get to the end of the race, you feel, for Hockey Iceman. Really not enjoying this track, I have to admit. Alfa Romeo better win. That's a lot of pressure from the Tier 1, I'm presuming a Tier 1 championship leader. And Hockey Iceman again just needs to brake a bit earlier, especially without the front wing. Just needs to be careful. Make sure you can get yourself into the pits, and again pushing it wide. But yeah, a lot of pressure being made there by JT Galato on the Alfa Romeo, and it is on Mrs. P. Mrs. P may not enjoy that too much, JT Galato. Be careful, mate. I think, well, 50 Gent did win last week, so in the Alfa Romeo. And also Mrs. P did just make a great overtake on Hockey Iceman before the safety car was called out. Anyways, let's see then. So Hockey Iceman is reverting back to his hard tyres and is using up his ERS in the pit lane. Bit interesting. An interesting strategy. Wouldn't have thought I'd have seen it much, but there you go. I would quickly turn off your ERS, mate. I know you probably want to catch up to the rest of the grid, but there's no point using up your ERS before you get there. I mean, the fact that also John Ramble hasn't caught up suggests to me the safety car may not even come in this lap. Oh, there is a corner there. Anyways, hopefully Hockey can catch up. John Ramble not too far away at this moment in time. I'm presuming the safety car will stay out for one more lap. Whilst everyone, well, I say everyone, 2 drivers catching up to the back of it. Certainly good news though for Wakanda, who does seem to have a bit more stability at this track than he did at Miami. And although he only qualified down a P5 here, if he does have the more stability, which from the early signs he does, he will look to pressurise Fido Jr. and Bretty Boy in the early stages of the safety car restart. Qualified, of course, down in P5, so already up into the third place. A strong start also by the two Haas drivers. I say a strong start, I mean that they're doing well. P5 for Dan, P6 for Dat Trash. Dan did overtake his teammate, having had an underwhelming start to the race. Canucks also flying up the order into the top 9. Jay Francis was at the back, now into P10. Hockey Iceman, why is he using up his ERS? Somebody needs to tell him to stop using his ERS. He's got 0% left. Just press the off button on that ERS, just press it until we get back underway at least, because everyone else, literally everyone else, has 100% ERS charge. Then there's Hockey Iceman who has hovering around. Oh, there you go, now he's at 0% again. He's gonna have a bit of a struggle, isn't he? I think what he's doing though, I think he's just trying to prioritise just keeping his car on the track, try and get to the end if he can, and doesn't really care about where he finishes or making overtakes. I just think he wants to get to the end. But he is now catching up to the safety car, but I'm guessing that is his strategy. Like, forget about pressing all these extra buttons. Who needs to do that? Just focus on the track. I think that's what he's trying to do. And again, as I was saying last night, all you need to do is get to the end. You get your team some very decent points. But we are going to get back underway very soon then, and we will go on board with the flying Ferrari off Wakanda. And it looks like Fido has made a dart. No, I thought Fido had made his move then, but now he's making his move. And Bretty Boy sticks with him, not far behind. Wakanda's there, and Hockey Iceman with another 3-second penalty. As Nick runs a bit wide, and now that trash has fallen down the order. I think his car was in the background there. So that trash now right at the back of the field, and it's very close between the trio excelling at the front. Fido Jr. from Bretty Boy from Wakanda, and these three a menace to each other so far, really pushing each other to the limit. No moves yet being made. Contact between the front two, Fido and Bretty Boy. Presumably no damage caused, hopefully. And it is these three who are having the most healthy battle at the moment. However, you've still got Dan right behind Nick. Dan on the medium tyres and trying to make his way back through the grid and looking to push into the top four, and it could make it a four-way scrap. Although Nick, to be fair to him, is holding his own in fourth place. Hockey Iceman now and John Ramble. So Hockey did have an overtake, but with how far behind he is, I'm presuming he just missed his braking. That's ironic, isn't it? I was just going to say he missed his braking point. That's great. I have to say that's great timing. I can tell you one driver who missed their braking point. That's John Ramble, and Hockey now does run wide into the wall. Probably got damage, and Canucks picks up a 3-second penalty. Dat Trash, meanwhile, now into P11. And moves are being made. Fido Jr. into the pits. I do wonder if that was a forced move, or is that a strategic effort by the McLaren, who was leading and is now in the pits. Wakanda, meanwhile, has dropped off to 2.7 seconds behind. I do just worry now if what exactly happened. He is so far behind Bretty Boy. Anyways, we'll be on board with Dan, who may make a pass down the inside on Nick. He doesn't. Nick locks up a little bit. in the Alpine, but not too much, and still holds on to P3, but hits a wall, and it could potentially enable Dan to make a move round the outside, and he does move into the top 3. Nick may be under pressure from DD Friend, who will now make a move, bid his way up into P4, but he doesn't quite complete the move. The Alpine holding his own, standing firm and remaining in P4. What about Canucks now chasing down Sam Hudson still, and this is now to be in the top 6. So what a battle for Canucks from the back of the grid. Jay Francis now chasing down Mrs. P, possibly eyeing up a move on the Alfa Romeo. Got to be careful with the white line there as well, because crossing that you will get a warning. It may not seem particularly reasonable, because like that is probably one of the most harshest sort of spots, I suppose, to pick up a warning, because it's only crossing the marginal white line, as Bretty Boy does go quicker with a 146.1, and again maybe an opportunity for Jay Francis, doesn't send it down the inside at the final corners. Oh, and it looks like Canucks struggling now, right on the inside line, and Mrs. P has to move on Canucks. I'm not I don't know what, I'll be honest, I'm not sure what Canucks was doing. Took an inside line, it looked like he was going very slowly. I don't know, that was a weird one. But we'll see what the stewards have to say on that one. I'm sure it will go in to the stewards. So Jay Francis still now on the back of Mrs. P. That's Hockey Iceman. How many penalties has he picked up then? Let's have a look. 9 seconds. Lap 8. 9 seconds. He might pick up a disqualification at the rate he is going at. I'm not sure how many penalties you need to rack up for disqualification actually. But surely if you do pick up, say, I don't know, over 30 seconds in game, I don't know if that's worthy of disqualification or not. I would have thought it might be. Meanwhile, Bretty Boy 4.9 seconds ahead of Wakanda. Yellow flags, meanwhile, for what I believe is the Aston Martin of John Ramble, running wide once again, but still in the race. Dan chasing down Wakanda, flying in the Haas. He is. Oh, I'm going to stay on board with him because he's taken a better line of Wakanda. The aid of DRS now, and makes a move down the inside of the Ferrari, just about maybe lose enough space. Does run wide, potentially takes a warning, but is into the top 2. 6 seconds the gap between himself and Bretty Boy. Can he push and close up to the Aston Martin ahead? Meanwhile, Jay Francis still chasing down Mrs. P to get into the top 6. The Mercedes also making a nice, comfortable start. Well, I say that, a restart should I say, having started quite poorly. I'm not sure exactly what happened, dropped to the back, but has recovered very well. So I have to say I have been impressed with Bretty Boy, Dan and Jay Francis for sure. Mrs. P made an excellent overtake on Hockey early in the race. Wakanda making his way into the podium positions as well in the Ferrari, also now outside the 1 second window of Dan, so Dan clearly does have some pace. Not quite closing the gap just yet to Bretty Boy, but Dan is on the mediums, Bretty Boy in the hard tyres. Well, Philo Jr. on the hard as well in the McLaren. Certainly lost quite a lot of time, I think, to the leaders. Of course, he was leading the race. So we'll revert back, and there was a battle going on between DD Friend and Nick, and it looks like the Alpine has lost out to the AlphaTauri. DD Friend now into the top 4. DD Friend impressing at the start of the season and has a podium in his sights. Nick being overtaken now has a Mrs. P behind. Yellow flags, I think, for Sam Hudson. Oh, and there is a full course safety car. John Ramble also running wide again. Is that the same? swear he's done it at the same corner twice, maybe. But anyways, it is a full course safety car, no retirement, so maybe a car must have lost their front wing. Potentially was Sam Hudson, you know. I think he's going to the pits, so it was, I think, Sam Hudson. Going to see a change of tyres and a change of... Yeah, but he's definitely going to have to replace that front wing. So the tyres that Sam Hudson is opting for are the mediums. Can he get those mediums to the end? I'm not certain he can. Anyways, with this full course safety car, so Bretty Boy, sadly for him, his outstanding gap is just going to slip away because Dan has the ability now to close right up to the Aston Martin, and now this could be the battle that we've been wanting to see, and we may be able to see Fido Jr. have an opportunity as well because he's in the top 10 on hard tyres, which I think potentially can get you to the end. I'm sure he will probably pit again providing there are more safety cars. However, I'm just thinking the issue for Fido Jr. is he's still got quite a lot of cars ahead of him, and I would say a fair few he will feel like he has the capabilities to pass, but it is on a track where passing is not too easy. So unfortunately for Fido Jr. does run it very close to the wall indeed. I think he may struggle down there. If he wins from where he is now, I've got to say it will be an excellent effort, and there are pit stops being made. Mrs. P and Nick, also Wakanda, changing his front wing. So maybe better news for Fido Jr. Perhaps. Anyone else changing their front wing at all? So Canucks running through. I think Fido Jr. should now. Is he going to get himself up into 7th? Or will he just drop behind? It might be close between him and Wakanda. I think Wakanda is comfortably ahead. While Mrs. P, this is going to be closer. Mrs. P and Fido Jr. I think Mrs. P is just ahead, I thought. Maybe not. I thought Mrs. P had just about got out ahead of Fido Jr., but according to the game, perhaps not. So I guess we'll have to go with that unless we see Fido Jr. pick up a penalty now, which, let's be honest, if you do pick up a penalty now, it would have been very silly because you may as well have just let Mrs. P through. So I'm guessing there's no penalty incoming. And Fido Jr. is now into P8 on hard tyres, which I think can run to the end if he so chooses to do so. So Wakanda, in fact, on the mediums, which debatable if they can go to the end, but if they can go to the end, then he is the lead car of those who have indeed pitted. He is in P7. Canucks ahead has a penalty regardless, but has also made his way through the track, and also has Jay Francis. So those two doing a nice job for Mercedes and Alpine. Sure, the safety car will stay out for one more lap at the very least. I'm just going to get a quick drink again. Of course, it is a longer race here at Singapore, 31 laps. The actual race itself, I think, 61 laps, I think, but it is a very long race when you do the 100% version of it. Right. And there is a pit stop for DD Friend, which means Wakanda now into P6 and Fido Jr. up into the top 7. The McLaren started in pole position, made an early pit stop, which I'm uncertain as to why exactly he did that, whether it was strategic or maybe just wanted to get out of all the battling, wanted to do something different perhaps. But There you go, Fido Jr. now making his way through the grid. Hockey Iceman picking up a 5-second penalty. Let's go back with the penalty situation at the moment, which won't be showing there, it'll be showing there. 14 seconds on the board for Hockey Iceman, 6 seconds for Canucks. I do hope, though, after his efforts last night, that Hockey Iceman can get himself to the end. Gotta say, he has shown some fantastic resilience. As John Ramble do just wonder, did he run wide again? But regardless, Nick is ahead of him. Perhaps John Ramble feeling like Nick was quicker, perhaps, regardless, but anyways, Nick is ahead. Could have been, I suppose, out of the pits, maybe. Although I didn't see either of them go into the pits. Just realised also, Hockey Iceman is a lap down at this stage and cannot unlap himself on the soft compound tyres. But if you and Betty Boy pitting from the hard tyres, he will lose a lot of track position, especially to Wakanda and Fido Jr., who are now both 5th and 6th, having pitted. And now Betty Boy on the mediums. Hopefully he can get them to the end. I think he should be able to now. And he is coming out in P10 behind Sam Hudson. Ferrari needing to do his job for his teammate Wakanda, who is in P5. Betty Boy potentially competing with Wakanda and Fido Jr. for the win, but has Mrs. P, DD Friend and Sam Hudson between himself and those two drivers. And you also question now Jay Francis right behind Dan. He's looked very good in the Mercedes. Is he a late contender now? I say late contender. Perhaps wasn't a contender after the race started and when he dropped to the back, but he's fought his way through and is now up into the top 2, of course still needing to pit. But I've also mentioned we've only had the one retirement after 13 laps of racing. So still very well done from Tier 4 thus far, similar to what happened with Tier 3 yesterday. Both impressing, I've got to say, from what I've seen. And the safety car is in this lap, so Hockey Iceman is there, but then you've got Nick won't be able to catch back up. And also John Ramble, maybe, if he can push the Aston Martin a bit more, he might be able to catch back up before we go back to green flag racing. But I'm going to go on board with the Mercedes of Jay Francis. He has looked like he could be the man to push Dan. Dan, of course, does also have a buffer of his teammate, that Trash, in P3. Would be ideal. Oh, that Trash almost runs into the back of Jay Francis, but Jay Francis is right behind Dan. I actually thought Dan had gone already, but he hadn't, and Dan has got away brilliantly. Jay Francis not under pressure from that Trash, however, and Canucks could make a dart down here, so he does. Late braking, runs wide, and will have to give up the position. Wakanda now flies up into the top 3 in the Ferrari. Wakanda has already pitted. This could be game on for a race win for Wakanda forever. He is P3 on the mediums and has pitted already. 2 drivers behind him have not pitted. It is advantage Wakanda for the race win. If he can hold on, you will hope there are no more safety cars. Or, well, a virtual safety car, I have to admit, would probably be beneficial to him. Because virtual safety cars just limits the pace of everyone. But anyways, we'll go back. Fido Jr. chasing down Canucks. He will have to get a bolt on now. because he needs to keep up with Wakanda. Vito Jr.'s tyres will be better come the end of the race. Ooh! Ooh, and it's a spin, it's contact. Vito Jr. is out of the race. I'm not sure exactly really what happened too much. I had a good view of it, to be fair, and it is a full course safety car. Sadly, it looked like, oh, Canuck's losing his front wing, but it looked like Vito was going for an overtake, which wasn't really on, sadly. But again, I'm certain that will go to the stewards. But anyways, back with a full course safety car. Perhaps that was the first real slip up that we've seen. Hockey Iceman, meanwhile, has actually been DNF'd from the race. Dan pitting from the mediums. Gonna go on the hard, and Jay Francis staying out on the hard tyres. Interestingly, so Wakanda on fresh and mediums is P2 now. Mrs. P fresh hard tyres meanwhile is P3. DD Friend fresh hard on P4. You've got to say it's really, whilst it did bring Wakanda right into it, Mrs. P and DD Friend now, and also Sam Hudson up into the top 5. These are 3 drivers, Mrs. P, DD Friend and Sam Hudson, who have all pitted already. Canucks picking up another time penalty. Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to say if he lost the race in a way, because he would have lost ground if he did pit, whereas you see Wakanda on mediums. I think it may be beneficial for Jay Francis if he can keep Wakanda behind him, because he wouldn't want Wakanda to just run away with it at this moment in time. Wakanda has got a fair bit of pace, I think. It did look like Fido Jr. had plenty of pace, and then, but also, I still would not count out Dan from P6. He's definitely shown he has a lot of pace, and also Bretty Boy opting for the soft tyres. Not what I would have thought personally. I think it depends with Wakanda, because if he can get himself into a healthy advantage, I think he can coast his tyres to the end. But for that to happen, he needs some of the quickest in this tier to just not be able to keep up with him and struggle to overtake other drivers. So, old Bretty Boy has picked up a 3-second penalty, which that could be crucial come the end of the race, although he is on soft tyres, so again, not really helping him out. Oh, and Jay Francis is now pitting, so Wakanda has the lead of the race. So now, can Wakanda pull away on the medium tyres? And if he can, although also, keep watch, I know you've got Mrs. P behind, DD Friend, also very quick, so I think the contenders to push Wakanda right now, in terms of what pace I've seen from them, DD Friend, Dan, I would have said Bretty Boy if he was not on the soft tyres, but he is on the soft tyres, so he's definitely going to have to pit again, so it was a strange strategy from him. But the 2 drivers, I would say, DD Friend and Dan, are in a position to possibly push Wakanda. And also, you have Sam Hudson, who is ahead of Dan. Can he play a team game for Wakanda and try to keep Dan behind for as long as he can? And all this will be beneficial for Mrs. P as well. P2. Very nicely done. I mean, a couple of very good moves. I've got to say that one move early in the race, my favourite so far that I've seen. Very impressive. And the fact that she did not outbrake herself or run wide or anything like that, it was a perfect move. And space was afforded also. I think it was hockey, but space was afforded there. So it was great driving by the pair, but it was a fantastic overtake, I have to say. So who are we thinking at the moment will win? 16 laps in and the safety car is coming in this lap. But what's the chat saying? Who will win this race right now? Let's see your predictions before we get underway. JT Galato, you must know. Come on, mate. You're quick enough to know who might win this race, surely. DD Friend getting very close to Mrs. P, who is actually now starting to catch up to Wakanda, who is going now. I think. Not exactly sure what was happening there with Wakanda. I thought he went before that. And now as a result, Mrs. P being overtaken by DD Friend. I'll be honest with you, I did think Wakanda had gone before the final corner. And that's from a teammate's perspective as well. It did look like he had gone. But, oh, Bratty Boy chasing down that trash. I feel like Bratty Boy could have actually completed an overtake there, but down here you will go down to the inside. Oh, what? Whoa! Something major has happened, and that is short. I mean, how is that not a safety car? Gabe, out of all the incidents we've had today, how was that one, out of all of them, not a safety car? See, that makes no sense. Why is the game giving safety cars for a little bit of damage, but then sees that and it says, no, we're not putting any form of safety car out. Not even a virtual safety car. That's crazy. But there you go, J Francis. Oh, now we've got a safety car. What? Is that for that incident or is it for something else? Because that car has disappeared by now. But anyways, so you got three of the stronger contenders, Jay Francis, Pretty Boy and Fido Jr. all out of the race. And a full course safety car, and let's see now any pit stops. Maybe at this stage, depending on what Wakanda decides to do. I feel like Wakanda just has to stay on the mediums. And maybe hopes for a late safety car so we can go for soft tyres. Because DD Friend can stay on the hard tyres. I don't feel like it would be any form of advantage for Wakanda now to pit. There's no point pitting for used hard tyres. That trash now has retired. Not sure where he retired. As Nick is going into the pits. Dan also pitting from the hard tyres. Yeah, John, soft tyres. Oh, Dan pitting for softs, but changing his front wing. On a personal basis, I mean, unless you have no tyres left, but then you should have some form of tyres left at this stage. But I wouldn't box for softs until later in the race if I had to box at all for softs, because I just don't see the point. You want as much track position as you can get around Singapore. Pitting for softs, yeah, you may make up one or two places or whatever it may be, but then you're going to just have to pit again in a few laps time. Yeah, Aston Martin DNF. Bertie Boy unfortunately was a contender for the victory. He qualified in, I think it was P2, was it? But anyways, out of the race. I think it was something with him, Jay Francis, maybe one or two others. It was quite a big collision, whatever happened. I mean, I was on board with one of the drivers and all of a sudden their car just literally got completely spun, lost a wheel. Yeah, just something. Wakanda should get penalised after the race tried to dive bomb two drivers at Singapore. Yeah, I mean, hear me out, like, on a personal basis. I don't want to be saying, like, as the commentator, I don't want to be saying that driver should get penalised or whatever. I do prefer to just say it will probably be looked at. Because at the end of the day, the stewards will make their decisions on it, and you know, there's no point making opinions when we can get a clearer picture of what happened, or the stewards can get a clearer picture of what happened in particular, because we only get one view of it. Unless obviously you go back to the stream, have a look at it again, but it's a lot easier from the driver's view as well, so, but yeah. Personally, I just think it's a lot easier just to ensure the stewards will have a look at things and we'll go from there really. I do wonder though, one other thing was the safety car restart that we did just have the one before this one. Because I don't think it was the only time where I've questioned if the driver has in the lead has gone and then seemed to stop at the final corner and go again. Like, if you're keeping a consistent pace around the final corner, that's fine. But it seems like drivers seem to have bolted, and then all of a sudden they're slowing down again. Then they go around the final corner, and then they bolt again. That's where it's a bit like questionable as to what they're doing exactly. But yeah, I think, I don't know, things will be looked at, that's for sure. But it was looking like a reasonably clean race from what I was seeing. Just looks like, I mean, 13 laps in, it was just a one retirement for Buddy Nation. Yeah, safety car could have been safety car not in the pits, possibly, but then at that point you just have to wait for the safety car to get into the pits. It might be just too late at the moment for the safety car to go into the pits this lap. Because Nick is just catching up now. All 8 drivers are on the lead lap, but it will be one more lap under the safety car. I do wonder if I'm Nick, I'm probably thinking about pitting right now. Oh, there you go. And John Ramble is pitting Canucks likewise. And also John, yeah, John isn't, okay. I said also John. I was thinking Nick may have been again, but he's not. But Canucks and John will look to take their new tyres to the end. Canucks taking one of his penalties. John opting for soft tyres. Canucks opting for soft tyres. All those soft tyres are going to have fun at the end of the race. Good luck to them. Safety car in pit lane is not good enough. Got to be in the pits. Yeah, they got to literally be completely in the pits. I mean, I think from what I've seen from tiers 1 and 3 at least, I can't say too much for tier 2 because I was obviously racing in tier 2. I haven't really watched much of a stream back. Canucks just struggling maybe with cold tyres, but I think the safety car restarts got away okay in tiers 1 and 3 from what I believe. There was no accelerating, then slowing down all of a sudden, then re-accelerating, but yeah. And now the safety car is in this lap. Softs won't make it, yeah. I mean, I'm surprised that they've opted for those tyres, but then, I don't know, they've got to hope for another safety car and go back onto a fresh set of softs to the end. But with only 8 drivers left, we may not get another safety car, so They have to be optimistic. Perhaps it's not the race for the soft tyres to be used really, but yeah, they just seem, I'll be honest, because the safety car is just going in now, but there's similar things again. So Wakanda's now going underway, but they were still quite close to the safety car, so the safety car wasn't fully in the pits. Anyways, moves being made. It looks like Dan and Nick gaining places perhaps. And also John on Sam Hudson, who's dropped down to P7. Soft tyres have worked for Dan and John on the restart at the very least, and Canucks putting pressure on the Ferrari ahead, Sam Hudson. Mrs. P meanwhile right behind DD Friend. DD Friend losing a couple of seconds on the restart to Wakanda. Sam Hudson running wide. Let's see with Mrs. P. Perhaps just losing a bit of time now. Yellow flag as Nick has spun round. Do wonder potential form of contact, or I didn't think there was anyone around him at the time, so I think that may have just been a spin. Canuck still right behind. What about Dan chasing down Mrs. P, who has now lost a bit of time to DD Friend. Meanwhile, DD Friend 3.2 seconds behind Wakanda. So 10 laps left. Can Wakanda continue to gain an advantage? Well, DD Friend has ran wide. Mrs. P may have an opportunity. Oh, and Dan was thinking about a move down the inside of Mrs. P, but opts to pull out of the overtake, and now John Ramble in the Aston Martin back into the battle for what could be a podium if he can somehow get his soft tyres to the end. Maybe a bit miraculous, but Dan chasing down Mrs. P. Will he make a move down the inside? He decides not to again and stays in 4th place. And the gap continuing. Oh, and Mrs. P has dropped a couple of places. Not sure what's happened there. Perhaps contact with the wall maybe, and there's no, it doesn't look like there's any oh, hang on. Is there front wing damage? There might be. And there is a full course safety car, so I'm going to take a presumption there may have been front wing damage. And now, is this the stage where soft tyres come on? Lap 22 out of 31, and you get the presumption now that soft tyres may be flying on for some of these drivers. I mean, they will struggle for sure at the end of the race. They'll be well into their 70%, I think. But if you don't pit now, I'm sure a lot of drivers behind you or in front of you will pit now. Maybe a game of bluff being played now. So Wakanda on 11 lap old mediums. I think he could have got those mediums to the end, but it will certainly be, I think, ideal for him to pit right now. But you just know there's going to be a couple of drivers in the field who are just going to think about staying out. Just figure out who it is. On a personal basis, I wouldn't care where I was positioned, I would pit right now. And there you go, the first driver, Wakanda, not pitting from the mediums. DD Friend following him. Actually, no one is pitting. Mrs. P is the first to pit, maybe changing the front wing. Sam Hudson following Mrs. P into the pits. So only 2 drivers out of the top 7 pitting. Mrs. P and Sam Hudson. Maybe change of front wings being made. Let's see. Sam Hudson's on the hard tyres. Okay, very interesting. Mrs. P, I think, did change her front wing and is on the soft tyres, but is behind Sam Hudson in P7 now. But fresh soft tyres on for Mrs. P. Everywhere else it's as you were. What about John Ramble now? 3-lap old soft tyres in P3 behind Wakanda and DD Friend on mediums and hards respectively. And is there an opportunity perhaps for the Aston Martin? Just wants to be careful under the safety car with his soft tyres. Do already see a little bit of graining being formed on these tyres for all of them. Do you still think Wakanda's got the victory here? So I'm wondering. I mean, if John Ramble is not using up too much of his tyres, of his tyre wear at this stage, then. And if we have another lap under the safety car, it may also be beneficial for John Ramble, and also Dan Canuck still there, however. Let's have a little look again. It's penalty 6 seconds still. So it looks like Canucks will be out of the running. Oh, and Dan is pitting from the soft tyre, so he will drop to the very back. But he will be on fresh soft tyres, you imagine. Sam Hudson on the old hard tyres into the top 4. I say old hard, he did pit again. I do wonder if he did mean to pit on hards or if he actually meant to pit on softs, but regardless, he is now on the hard tyres. Maybe didn't think the softs would go to the end. I know they will definitely struggle at the end though. But it's about making the gains early in the race, or early in the restart at the very least. So Dan indeed on the first soft tyres. And it's interesting as well because no drivers in the top 7 have any penalties whatsoever. So I don't need to put up the gap to the leader, for example. And I do of course mean in-game penalties, I don't mean post-race penalties. But still, the interval will be more ideal at the moment than the gap to the leader, as a result of only Canucks having a 6-second penalty. But a good variety of tyres late in the race, softs, mediums and hards all in use, all at play. He was hella aggressive. Which, I was going to say which driver, then again I don't want to cause any issues, so perhaps we'll leave it at that at the moment. Again, just post the instant clip, mate, is what I would recommend. But Wakanda from DD Friend. I think at the moment you just make sure you don't get too close. Maybe for Wakanda, just slow down a bit, let the safety car get into the pits completely. It just seems like the drivers just want to go as quickly as they can, really. Let's see now, on board with DD Friend, now he is going. And again, Wakanda does get away nicely. John Ramble right on the back of him. Oh, he's, I thought, making a move, but thankfully he is able to brake enough. Stays behind DD Friend in the AlphaTauri. But 5 laps on those soft tyres. Got to get it to the end. Can he do it? First thing for him, he's got to make the move on DD Friend, who was struggling to keep pace with Wakanda ahead. And no dart down the inside. John Ramble just avoids contact. Nick, oh, Mrs. P is flying, it looks like, and passes Sam Hudson, moving into the top 4. And now, maybe actually, 2 laps on those soft tyres. Mrs. P, it may be advantage to the Alfa Romeo. 2 Ferraris still doing a stellar job in the race, both in the top 5. Sam Hudson needing to keep Nick behind, however. We'll go back with John Ramble, chasing down DD Friend ahead, using up a lot more of his ERS. DD Friend still has 80% of it. Wakanda has about 60% in the lead and is already 2.8 seconds out of DD Friend. Yellow flags being shown, and it is for John Ramble, the 5-lap old soft tyres. And he has dropped now to the back of the field. And it looks like a battle here for P4. Sam Hudson's lost ground to Mrs. P ahead. So it's Mrs. P well ahead now. Sam Hudson from Nick, from Dan and Canucks. And John Ramble now right in this battle too. Having made the earlier mistake. And again making a mistake. And John Ramble should make a pit stop, and he does, for new soft tyres. So go back to the action. Mrs. P is chasing down DD Friend. DD Friend is over 6 seconds behind Wakanda. And it will be Wakanda at this moment in time who will take he will take the win, providing there's no post-race penalties. But we'll see, can Mrs. P complete an overtake? Not quite close enough. What about Nick? Closing in on Dan, who actually looks like he's getting closer to Sam Hudson. Runs wide, and this may enable an opportunity for Nick. Maybe not, though. Dan stays in P5. Oh! Sam Hudson struggling and losing the place to Dan. And late braking by Nick, and it doesn't enable Canucks to make the move. The 2 Alpines side by side. Who's going to get it into the top 6 right now? Canucks down the inside, contact made. And you've got to say, kind of, you get one of those impressions, don't you, that it's Sebastian Vettel, Mark Webber, a little bit, in terms of a bit of contact made. And it is a late full course safety car. Now, if you are going to make a pit stop, this is the perfect time to do it. Fresh softs, are they coming on for Wakanda? This is the first question. The only issue is, I feel like, you know what? If you're the likes of Wakanda, his pace so far, I mean, the gap he has over DD Friend, why would he pit? There you go, he doesn't pit. And you know what? I think that's the right decision, to be honest. And I would say maybe, I do wonder on DD Friend, is he going to pit now? And it looks like he is going to pit, so Mrs. P, but she has a penalty. And what penalty is it? It's a drive-through. Oh, drive-through penalties. Drive-through penalties, guys. No. Wakanda now will surely take the victory. Oh no. So drive-throughs for Mrs. P, Canucks, Dan and DD Friend. So, you know what? Might be looking good for Ferrari. 1-2, an unlikely 1-2, could potentially be on the cards, but Sam Hudson's pitting. But whilst he is pitting, yes, hopefully John Rambo, does he make an overtake on Sam Hudson? I don't think he's going to be ahead. No, so Sam Hudson in the second Ferrari is P6. However, the 4 drivers ahead have drive-through penalties. And we are on lap 27 out of 31. You cannot take a drive-through penalty until the safety car is in the pits. So, now the question may be, is it going to be a Ferrari 1-2? Can Sam Hudson keep the likes of John Ramble and Nick behind? And you also question with, well, I mean, Sam Hudson is on fresh soft tyres, so I imagine that the likes of Mrs. P and Canucks, regardless of the pace they show, surely they won't be able to catch up with the drive-through penalty. unless there's mistakes from the likes of Sam Hudson, John Rambo and Nick, I imagine we will have another lap under the safety car because not many have actually caught up. Even DD Friend P4. Ooh, very close to the wall for the AlphaTauri. Now drivers are just starting to catch up. So DD Friend, Dan, Sam Hudson and John Ramble all just a couple of corners away now. And then after this we will just await the Alpine of Nick. I do just wonder for Nick, can he... I don't think it would be a smart decision to go to the pits because I don't think he'd be able to catch up at that stage. Whereas if he continues now, he will be able to catch up. So, oh, there you go. Maybe he should have just went into the pits. Oh, he's pitting. He's sadly for him. That's been picked up on the stream. He may, again, may go to the stewards, but Nick into the pits then for fresh, soft tyres. I was worried at first. I saw the white on the inside. I thought it was on hard. Oh, he is actually retiring. And the Alpine, Nick would have got some great points for the team. And he's, unfortunately, Alpine just going to lose points there. An unnecessary retirement from Nick. Even if he had come home in P8, would have got some great points. But anyways, I am certain now the safety car should be coming in this lap, and indeed it is. 28 laps out of 31. And who at this stage will take the victory is surely Wakanda will deliver the win unless he makes a mistake. I mean, he may not know exactly what's going on. No, he must see the 4 drivers behind him all have a drive-through penalty. He will see that. He will know that. And at that stage, he's probably thinking, I'm literally... Oh, okay, he almost spun it into a wall. Ah, oh, rear wing damage. I feel your pain. I feel your pain. I know what that's like. Yep, that's horrible. Understood. Anyways, Wakanda now underway and Dan ahead of Mrs. P, who is... Oh, so they're all opting to pit this lap except for Dan. John Rambo down the inside of Sam Hudson. Sam Hudson is able to retain position for Ferrari. And it looks like it is a battle just between these 2 drivers then. Who can take P2? Because Dan still needs to take his drive-through penalty. This is your battle then for second place. And it is Sam Hudson versus John Rambo. Ferrari versus Aston Martin. Will it be a Ferrari 1-2 or will Aston Martin spoil the party? What are we thinking in the chat? Would it be a 1-2? Who can deliver, Sam or John? Although, speaking of which, Dan is keeping pace with Wakanda at the moment. Wakanda, of course, on the 18-lap-old medium tyres. But Sam Hudson is still playing a great game for his teammate, keeping John behind. John, who may feel like he could track down Wakanda. But John is... Ooh! And Wakanda's out of the race. Never mind, it won't be a Ferrari 1-2. Wakanda is out. Which could mean at this stage it's a battle for P1 between Sam Hudson and John Rambo. How is Rambo still going? Well, wow, Wakanda. Wakanda forever. Not quite forever now. And now there's a possibility for John Rambo to make the move and the dart down the inside. He does, and he is leading the race ahead of Sam Hudson. And what looked like a possible Ferrari 1-2 is now ending in disappointment, perhaps. P2 for Sam Hudson, which is where he was probably going to get anyways, possibly, but Wakanda retiring from what looked like an unassailable advantage. And sadly for him, he's out, and he was going to take a clear win. But John Ramble now pulling away. I mean, out of absolutely nothing, John Ramble is surely now going to win this race on the penultimate lap. Unless Sam Hudson can close the gap from 1.4 seconds, it's going to be a victory for John Ramble. An unlikely win for the Aston Martin. Let's see now with DD Friend 2 seconds behind Mrs. P. Mrs. P will take the final podium spot. And what about Dan? Is he able to chase down DD Friend? Well, it looks unlikely with the penalties. 3 seconds on the board. I've got to say that is shocking from... I say shocking, I don't mean that in a horrible way, but I mean it is shocking in terms of the race for Wakanda. Crazy ending here then. But John Ramble now on the final lap has a 1.5 second lead to Sam Hudson. And surely now, but potentially running wide John Ramble. Is that it allowing for Sam Hudson to close the gap? Mrs. P does go quicker, so 1:44.7. Sam Hudson now back to within 1.1 seconds. 1 second now the gap. Is the Ferrari able to close in on the Aston Martin ahead? And also I see Dan is closing up to the friend and making the move into P4, possibly round the outside, and makes the move ahead into P4. Can he open up a 3 second gap to take a top 4 finish here? But we will go back for the lead of the race then. John Ramble versus Sam Hudson. It looks like John surely has got this win secured. Let's see, is there any possibility that Sam Hudson can take the win? I mean, whoever takes the win out of these two, it's an unlikely win, but a precious win for one of the two. It looks like it will be for John Ramble. He has not got any more ERS left. Sam Hudson still has a bit, 20%, but we are into sector 3, and this is all John Ramble needs now. 1 second is the gap. Meanwhile, Dan has pulled out a 3 second gap to DD Friend and will surely take a top 4 finish. But it looks like nothing can deny the Aston Martin the victory. John Ramble will come home to win in Singapore in Tier 4. What a win at round 3. John Ramble takes it. Sam Hudson with a top 2 finish. What a stellar drive by the pairing in the end. And Mrs. P will take a podium. Potentially feels like she could have won it. But it is a 3rd place finish. A podium position for the Alfa Romeo. Dan does take 4th place. DD Friend not within the 3 second window. So although DD Friend looks quick in the opening 2 races, not delivering too much today, and missing out to Dan for 4th place. And then Canucks will take a 6th place finish in the Alpine. Just to wait for him to cross the line then. But the race has fallen away from Wakanda forever in the Ferrari. But also, you have to think about the likes of Jay Francis, Bretty Boy and Fido Jr., all of which will feel like wins were on the card, or at least a podium. So quite a few missing out, unfortunately. Canucks now crossing the line, but we will skip to John Ramble, your race winner. And it is the Aston Martin with a stunning drive to take P1, overtaking Sam Hudson and taking the victory. But Sam Hudson was brilliant also to take P2. But it could have been a Ferrari 1-2. But unfortunately, not quite. Wakanda missing out, of course, with his late retirement. And then John Ramble, what a job he done. So here are the podium celebrations then. I'll say 13 laps in, it looked like very clean racing. I don't know what happened in the second half of the race. Not sure entirely, but unfortunate for quite a few of those drivers, especially those who could have fought for the win. But we'll see what the stewards have to say, and also very well done to the drivers who did finish in the end. And Mrs. P did not get the fast lap. It went to the way of the Haas of Dan, who had to bolt because he had to get a 3-second gap to DD Friend, and he successfully delivered to take P4. But I'm going to take a screenshot, and it does actually show up Wakanda plus 3 laps. Does that mean he will take points in the Ferrari? Does that mean Nick will take points in the Alpine? Being 3 and 4 laps down, although they did DNF, it still got them on the timing screens, which is interesting. So I've taken a screenshot of that. I'm also going to go through the incidents list once again, as I did last night. So quite a few apparently. So obviously I'm going to try and go through it reasonably quickly, so I can get through it to the end. There you go. So that is the full incidents list gone through. But John Ramble taking the win here in Tier 4 at Singapore. A great effort by him. So we will now be back then. Thank you for watching for tonight, but we will be back on Saturday night. Does the race start at 7 or 7:30? On a personal basis, I think I would be able to make 7:30, but I'm unsure if I would make 7 o'clock. But whatever time it would be, 7 or 7:30, we will be back then. I'm hoping at 7:30 personally, but we'll see anyways. But we'll be back on Saturday night then. It'll be 2 races, one from either 7 or 7:30. The second one will be at 10 o'clock. And then back next week for tiers 1, 2, 3 and 4 again, which will be at France. But thank you for watching tonight's race. Congratulations to John Ramble on the victory. And thank you for watching. I've been Viva F1 Comms. We have been UFRL. And that is your race complete. And we will see you on Saturday night then.